So I believe that our mind will try and keep us in places that our heart knows is no longer for us. And where that comes from is really a YouTube comment I received that I want to answer, but also our Discord community calls that I've been hosting every Tuesday night. So if you are in the Discord, be sure to join. It's very valuable, and we've been having some great conversations in there. But the question basically pertains to how somebody can still be on your mind even when you're healed from them. You know, you have no intention or no want or no desire to get back with them, but you still think about them pretty much every single day. And what I first want to lead into this video is that we'll never just forget about people. I think we have this misconception of healing just being us completely forgetting about people and never remembering that they existed or were ever in our life, basically. And that's not really what healing is. I believe that healing is when you can think about a person, you can reflect on a person, you can hear someone's name, and it doesn't emotionally trigger you. Because I know in my past, when I've heard certain people's names, or I saw a video of them randomly online, or they randomly pop up on my feed somehow, you know, you type in on Instagram a letter and they pop up. And when that brought some type of sharp pain, some type of internal trigger, that's how I knew, you know, I'm not completely healed from this person, or they still have I still have some type of emotional connection towards it a little bit. And so I think when you know you're healed is when you can look at someone, when you can hear from someone, when you could hear a story of someone, hear their name, see their name, whatever, and it doesn't really bother you. But it's never something you just completely forget, because I believe those are the stories that when people truly impact our lives or have a true big impact on our life and the person that we become today, those will be the stories we always remember. Those will be the stories we'll tell to our grandchildren and be able to remember scene by scene, event by event. And that doesn't necessarily mean you still wish to be in that relationship or still have that person in your life. Sometimes it just means, hey, that was just a significant part of my life, moment in my life, and that's okay. But I myself, my own personal story, was once a person who sought out a lot of attention, who never received that attention from home, and so I would go to school and seek out that attention from other people. And as a result, I turned into the class clown. I turned into a person who was pretty damn annoying, because I was always just trying to be seen. I was always just trying to have people look my way, receive love from people, be accepted by people. And when I finally broke out of that, I basically looked for it in relationships then. And when I meant relationships, I meant like intimate ones. And so when I finally received a girl that would give me that attention, that would give me that love I always wanted from other people, it made me a lot more attached to that person than I needed to be, or than I should have been. And so it put me in a position to where I was chasing after receiving a feeling or receiving something from someone for so long, to the point that when I finally found it, I held on to it as tight as I possibly could. And when that person decided to leave in and out of my life, it would put me on an emotional roller coaster that could lead me into depression, that could lead me into basically having them on my mind 24/7, wondering why they left, wondering what I could have done differently, living in regret, trying to contact them, looking for opportunities in which I could basically get them back and things like that. And so it put me in a position where they were on my mind 24/7. And what I had to realize is that until I was able to provide that feeling to myself, I would never be able to let that person go. Now, all of you guys aren't in that same boat. All of you guys aren't depending on a person for a feeling, but they provided you a feeling that you never received before, like myself, but you may not be depending on them for it, or you may not be attached to them for that reason. Sometimes people are able to make us feel a certain way, and that's the only time we've ever felt that way. And so they're the only person we can relate back to ever having that feeling with. And we like that feeling so much to the point that sometimes we're just looking for it. We just want it again. We're just needy for it in a way. It's like we just desire it, basically. And sometimes it's not always I dependent on them for this feeling. Sometimes it's just a feeling of that was a good feeling and I wish I could have that again. Sometimes again, it's just a desire to have that feeling. And for myself, I had to learn to give myself that attention, give myself that self-love, because in receiving that attention, I gave myself permission to love myself. I gave myself permission to be secure in who I was and feel confident about who I was. I had to do some internal work to where all that stuff came from within rather than externally. But there's some feelings that we can't always provide to us, especially when we're alone and we're, not surrounded by people. But that's why it's so important of moving forward, making a commitment to move forward, because for many of you, your relationships are the center and the main vocal point of your life, or they were the main vocal point of your life, to where if you did lose that person, they were all you thought about. You had no other personal goals. You had no other things in which you were chasing after that were in your control. You had nothing you were trying to improve within yourself, or you had no other hobbies. And so once you lost that person, that was the biggest thing going on in your life. And until we learn to have a life outside of our relationships, whether friendships or intimate relationships, then we'll always have this neediness for them. We'll always have this feeling of depending on them in order to provide us with happiness, or they take up a big chunk of the happiness and our peace in our life. And I think we have to learn to not allow other people or the things out of our control to be the source of our happiness, our peace, our joy in life, and our enjoyment of life. But I think it's also important that we're not rushing our process of healing, our journey of healing, because the reality of healing is that it just gets you to a place where you can reflect on your past, reflect on the people of your past, and it doesn't emotionally damage you. It doesn't make you feel any type of way. It doesn't hinder your future relationships. But the process of healing is a process in itself, and it requires your full effort. It requires you actually showing up and allowing yourself to feel that whole situation. So yes, there's going to be, when you're in that process of healing, there's going to be no way to just escape the thought of what you're healing from at times, because that sometimes is the biggest thing going on in your life. And there's no healthy way where you could just forget about it or just diminish those thoughts, because as you heal and you become more distant from the situation, that's just kind of part of the process. And so some of you guys are in a situation where you're 2 months out of a relationship that you were in for a couple years, and you're wanting to just forget about a person or just not have them on your mind, when that's simply just not how that works. I'm more so pertaining to the people who feel like they've gone through that process of healing and trying to let go or letting go, but they still think about this person every single day. And what I've learned through my own journey is that the more we entertain our thoughts and the idea of who a person could be, our thoughts trying to create a hope for us to hang on to people from our past, our thoughts trying to tell us that we could fix this person, or hang on to regret of what could have been, or we're circling our life and the person that we're becoming around, trying to be the person who they want us to be, and hoping that we'll get another chance to be able to prove ourselves. I think we have to truly question our thoughts. I've had to learn that our thoughts and things tend to be on our minds for a reason. Things tend to bother us for a reason. They trigger us for a reason. And when you can truly learn to observe, you can truly learn to sit with your thoughts and ask, okay, what is my ego? What is my thoughts trying to get at? What will make them feel safe? What will make them feel I don't have to think about this or dwell on this all day, every day? What am I looking for out of this person? What am I looking for out of this situation? Sometimes it's just a validation for the person that we become. Sometimes it's an apology from that person. Sometimes it's them knowing how we feel. And sometimes it can even be ourselves giving ourselves permission to go and seek out new relationships. Because again, sometimes we think the relationships we've had, where we had that unique or that special experience that we never had before, we have a hard time deciphering, is this what's best for me? Is this truly worth letting go of? Again, I've had to deal with this, where it's like, is it truly time to give up on this? Am I giving up on this person, giving up on this situation too early? Or is there possibly an opportunity for me to fix it or fix the situation? Do I just need to be patient? Do I just need to wait? And again, our thoughts will try and find reasoning behind supporting that idea. And it'll say, oh yeah, like it'll find all this understanding. You'll find excuses for people. You'll find reasoning behind why they are the person they are and the decisions they made. And you're like, oh, we just need a bit of distance and then we'll be able to talk again and work things out. When in reality, sometimes you just have to bring yourself back to your reality and say, this person is not for me. And I give myself permission to let go and go seek out new relationships, go find new people, and start building a life that I don't expect this person to ever be a part of again. I think a lot of us carry, again, a hope, an expectation for the people of our past to eventually be in our life or find our way back into our life some way, somehow. And so we're almost building our new life, or us moving forward is centered around preparing for them to walk back into our life. And again, those will just keep you in an emotional loop, because although you might not feel any type of way, or you might be healed from the pain of that relationship, you're still emotionally chasing after something from them, or waiting, or hanging on to the hope. And you're constantly reminding yourself almost of why you're moving forward and which the way you're moving forward. And I think when you truly learn to let go of that, let go of those thoughts, stop entertaining those thoughts and stop believing them to be true, and stop taking action off of them. Again, sometimes our mind will try and create hope, and we just have to simply say, that's not my reality. That's not who that person is. That's not who I am. That's not where we're going. That vision or that idea of who I thought it could have, what I thought it could have turned into, that's not coming true. And sometimes you just have to stop it point blank then and there, and stop giving into it. Oh yeah, maybe I wish, maybe I could, maybe there's a chance. When you start giving into it, you start entertaining it, then it grows. It's almost like you're watering it. You're watering the thought, and it grows bigger and bigger and bigger. Sometimes you have to learn to ground yourself, center yourself in your reality, and remind yourself, this isn't my reality. This isn't who this person is. This isn't where the situation is going. And I got to decide to move forward and find these connections and these relationships with new people. And sometimes, again, people provided you with a feeling that you never felt before, and you have in the back of your mind that you'll never be able to find that again. Now, that's a projection. But sometimes I like to believe that people are the blueprint for the type of people we'll want in our future. So some people will take us through events. Some people will take us to learn certain lessons. Sometimes people need to come into our life, and they are temporary, but their whole purpose is to make us become more aware of what we want for ourselves and the type of people that we want around us. And that leads us to the people who will be in our life permanently, or who will be in our life for a long period of time. Because I've learned from my past that certain people that came into my life made me become aware of the lack of self-love I had in myself, or the lack of security I had within myself. They allowed me to understand, oh, I don't want people who can't communicate. I don't want people who react off their emotions. I don't want people who live a life of constant fear. I feel like when I changed my mindset and my perception, or my perspective of how I viewed the people from my past, I ended up finding a great appreciation for them, because I understood that, hey, unless you didn't come into my life and do all that bullshit you might have been doing, or do all that dirty doing that you was doing, I wouldn't have learned all these lessons to determine the type of people I would want moving forward in my life. I wouldn't have developed all these standards and these boundaries in which I live by, because now I have the experience to back it up, because I understand my why now. I understand why I have this standard. I understand why I have this boundary, because I experienced a life where being without those standards and those boundaries, I experienced what it brought, the result it brought to my life, the pain it brought to me. I understand I can't allow myself to go through that, because I wouldn't be showing love or respect to myself if I allow people to just come into my life without those standards or boundaries. And again, it allowed me to have a lot more appreciation and not necessarily want to forget people, because I understand without people, I wouldn't be the person I am today. There's certain people that I truly think about multiple times a week because of the role they played in my life. And so you guys ask me questions. You guys ask me questions all the time. You're like, hey, Will, how do I get over rejection? How do I stop overthinking? Hey, Will, how do I do this, do that in my relationship, or forget about this person, whatever? I have an experience to go off of. And when my whole life is revolved around me basically telling a story, telling my experience and the lessons I've learned, I have to go back to a place where I have to remind myself of certain people, where I have to relive certain experiences in order to remember how I even handled it. And so there's some people that will always be a part of me, especially if I do this for my whole life, because that's the experience I had for the lessons that I now am able to teach to you guys. And so sometimes we have to realize, like, there is no way to just forget people, because they've had that big of an impact on our story and the person that we become. Because without those people, I'm not able to make these videos. I don't have the knowledge in which I have. And so every time I think back on what has led me there, I think of going through those experiences with certain people. I'm able to think of, oh yeah, that was the time I got really disrespected. This is why I have this boundary. I know what it's like to depend on people because I dealt with this girl and I depended on her for so much. So it's like sometimes I can't just forget people because they played that big of a role in the person that I am today. And it's not that I'm emotionally attached to them or want them back or I'm trying to become the person who they want me to be. It's more so there's just a big part of my story, and I remember the feelings that they provided to me, whether good or bad. Again, sometimes people are the blueprint. Sometimes the feeling people provided to us is a blueprint for the type of people we want in our life moving forward. And I'm not saying to look for the people of your past and the people of your future, because obviously there's a reason why that person of your past is no longer in your life. And so you can say, I want certain traits. I want people in my future to have certain traits that this person in my past had, but I don't want to directly look for this person. I think as again, you continue to commit moving forward, building new connections, building new relationships, putting yourself out there, people will start to diminish in your mind because you'll be having new experiences. You'll be having new people who are able to help you with feeling that feeling, having that feeling of being loved, having that feeling of being accepted. And it'll almost make you forget about the people from your past, or it won't allow you to dwell on them as much as you do now, because again, all you have right now is knowing that somebody was once able to provide this feeling to you that made you feel some type of way, and you've never experienced that feeling with anybody else. And so with that scarcity, it seems like you have the idea of, I'll never be able to find this person again. I may not find anybody that's nearly like them again. What if that was the best that it gets? Because you haven't moved forward and built new relationships that are able to provide that same feeling possibly. And so due to it having that scarcity, that's the only way you're able to remember that feeling. You know, that feeling of being loved the type of way, that feeling of being accepted for who you were, that feeling of being able to be vulnerable. The times where you're like, damn, when was the last time I was truly able to be vulnerable? Some people are like, oh, I never had a space where I could be vulnerable. But then you finally find a situation where it allows you to be vulnerable, and it completely contradicts the belief you had in the past. And you're like, you know, I am capable of being vulnerable. But then once you lose that person, it's like, dang, maybe it was just that person that allowed me to feel vulnerable. And until you keep moving forward and trying to be vulnerable with more people, trying to build trust with new people, trying to not replicate your relationships of the past, but replicate parts of them, you know, again, using that blueprint for the type of people you want around you, then you'll understand I am capable of moving forward. I am capable of finding new people, and that this person from my past isn't the only person that's capable of making me feel this way. But you know, I think it's completely normal for some people to just be on your mind, especially until you find people who are able to impact you in the way they were able to impact you again. And I think you have to be intentional about finding new friends and finding people to contradict that thought in the back of your mind that might be saying this is the best that it gets, or maybe it was my fault, or maybe I lost the thing that was best for me. I think when you continuously try to move forward and you stay persistent in moving forward, understanding that that is not the best that it gets, and I am capable of building these relationships just how I built that once upon a time. You know, I think sometimes we think people were the best thing for us or the best that it gets, but once upon a time, before we ever met them, we never even knew that what we built that situation into would be able to provide that feeling that it once provided. And so that just goes to show that sometimes we get into relationships, whether friendships or intimate, with people who show us an experience of life that we never even knew existed. And I think that's why it's so important to continue moving forward and continue taking chances on people and continue being willing to open up and find new experiences, because you never truly know what's out there for you. But you know, I appreciate you guys for tuning into the video. Like I said, be sure to join up on the Discord. We've been having some great discussions in there. I really think it's valuable for you guys to join. Be sure to check out willkeepitreal.com. Go cop a hoodie. Use code WKeepItReal at checkout for 20% off. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notices. Catch you guys in the next video. Peace.